And Dr. Madero, you put that into words perfectly for me. For someone like me, I definitely deal with imposter syndrome on a pretty frequent basis. So it's very tough for me to realize that, oh, you're competent enough to be here. But for me, it's just, I know we face a multitude of challenges, whether it's like myself or other things that we face. But with our next question is and we'll begin with Dr. Serrano again. What were the biggest obstacles you faced as a first-generation student, and what do you think are now the most critical barriers facing first-generation students today?
Well, it's related to the last question. For me, it had to do with gender, because again, my brother and I are first generation, and I just felt like he had more choices than I did. So leaving my hometown for my undergrad was never an option for me. Though I really wanted to go to UT or Baylor at the time, one of those two schools, but it just, I wouldn't have been allowed. So that was one obstacle. And another obstacle, it has to do professionally, and I've presented about this at conferences. So my area specialty is 19th century American literature. So it's a lot of dead white men. That's kind of the joke I tell my classes. And when I was going to grad school, I was encouraged to study Chicano literature and teach Chicano literature. And even when I first got to ASU, I was asked to teach Chicano literature, but I didn't feel qualified at the time because that wasn't my area of specialty. So that was a challenge at the beginning, but slowly but surely I've been incorporating more women of color, Chicanos in my teaching and my research. So those are I think that's the identity crisis I've had professionally, and still balancing both. And I think for students, I would say it's like the little things you don't think about. So your parents, I remember my parents didn't know anything about FAFSA forms. They didn't know how to fill them out. They didn't know anything about them. So I remember having to do this on my own and feeling overwhelmed. And even little things, and that's what I mean by little things. They seem little at the now, but at the time they were quite overwhelming. Even knowing how to navigate, financial aid. I didn't have my parents to tell me what classes to take, to give me advice about college, because they didn't go to college. Even, and another little thing I remember too is I wanted to find all my classes the first day of college every semester, and they just didn't understand why I would want to do that. And I was really nervous about it. So I remember just roaming UT. I went to UT El Paso and roaming the university, finding all my classes, knowing where their library was, and just freaking out about the whole experience because it seemed so overwhelming. And I was the first generation in my family to go to college, and just basic navigation of the university was the challenge I remember. And I'm sure it's the same for students still to this day.
It's something I really admire about our cultures. It seems like almost an innate ability to adapt. We're so well versed in being able to kind of, maybe not necessarily overcome, but figure out a way to kind of flow with the force coming against us, if you will. But that was a great response. Thank you. Dr. Roberto?
Yeah, so when I think about the challenges that I faced, they're super similar to yours, Dr. Serrano. The first thing that came to my mind was definitely finances. I had no idea about finances, nor at the time, I wasn't really too worried about loans, honestly, because it was right at the end of the 90s. So the prices hadn't gone up too much, but I had no clue. I thought I had submitted my financial aid application before I went. I was set for the rest of all of my time at school. And it was one of my best friends in those first few weeks of school. I was blessed enough to form sort of a group of friends. And one of my best friends from the time, she had transferred to my school. And so she knew all the ins and outs about financial aid and everything that it took, because she had done that not at just one institution, but at 2 institutions. And I really was just like, oh, okay. And I would just follow whatever she did, because she had the process figured out. And then when I think about my graduate student experience, it really makes me think about something that you said, Erin, which is that imposter syndrome, right? So I remember feeling like there's no way that I'm smart enough, and sooner or later somebody's going to find out that I'm not prepared to be here. And it was to the point that the education system had formatted my brain to believe that my voice didn't matter, right? So when you write research papers, you don't get to say what you think, you have to say what these other people have said over the years. And so finding my voice in that experience was really, really challenging for me, in order to find that space and to realize that my experience is evidence of, it is its own truth. And is just as valid as what scholars have been talking about. So I think those are some of the challenges that I faced. When I think about what our students face today, I think it's somewhat similar. I wonder if our students today have been able to advocate for themselves. I think, like what you said, Erin, we just find our way out we find our way from point A to point B, and it doesn't matter how we get there, we just find our way out. And I think sometimes students haven't yet learned how to advocate for themselves, and especially if they're first generation and they don't understand the system, they don't know where they can advocate for themselves and sort of ask questions and go to faculty members and professors and tell them, hey, I don't understand this. I think what was my experience is I can't ask them, because then they'll think I don't know. And I don't want anybody to think I don't know. So I think that's one of the challenges that students still face today.
Oh yes, most definitely. It's something that of course, we have our other segment, El Capcito. It's something that we always get students saying that, my biggest fear is asking my professor for help. And I think it's, especially for me, it's just, I try to avoid confrontation, whether it's something regarding a conflict or something that I don't understand. It's very frightening for me. So I feel like, at least for me, it's very rooted in fear of, back to the feeling like I'm not competent enough to be able to be here, the imposters. Dr. Madero?
Very much in line with Drs. Serrano and Robledo. It's this notion of, what am I doing here? Do I belong here? But also, it's a thing of, we don't know what we don't know. And so it gets overwhelming when new information comes our way and we're trying to figure out, oh, what else is there that I'm supposed to be doing? So a lot of that gets very overwhelming. I was very fortunate to have very loving, supportive parents who were all about education, and that's wonderful. But no, they couldn't help me with the paperwork and those types of things. And although my parents think, they make me feel like I hung the moon, at the end of the day, they're my parents. And so I needed validation. I needed to know that all these insecurities that I was feeling were normal, that others were feeling them too. And I think one of the things that contributed to the possible lack of confidence, and much like the others, I got accepted to UT for my PhD. And I really felt like at any moment, somebody was going to come tap me on the shoulder and say, we're sorry, we accepted you by mistake. You don't belong here, you're not supposed to be here. And part of what contributed to all that is that I didn't see somebody like me in the classroom until my PhD at UT. So I went all of my undergrad and all of my master's and never had a Latino professor. So when we don't see ourselves around campus, when we don't see others doing the things that we think we want to do, or having crossed the finish line that we're aiming for, it doesn't help. So I think those are some of the challenges that our students have. Maybe we need more people that look like our Latinx students out and about in visible positions.
It definitely would be more encouraging for all of our students to have those role models to look up to, especially first gen who don't exactly have that to look up to at home. So we'll move on to the next question. A consejo is a piece of advice, but within cultural context, advice that is passed down from generation to generation. It's considered part of the heritage and is considered to be words of wisdom. What consejos help develop resilience and persistence as an education? Dr. Serrano?
Oh, yes. I would say don't be afraid to ask for help, and use the university's resources, and people are more than happy to help you. So if you can't navigate FAFSA forms, contact the financial aid office. If you're having a difficult time feeling like you fit in, go to more multicultural events, or visit the Multicultural Center. That's a wonderful resource. Also, we have the freshman college. So I tell my students to educate themselves about the resources available to them at ASU. And so that's one piece of advice I'd give. Just make sure to use the resources available and talk to your professors. I'd like, I actually do like it when students come and ask me for help. And I've also had students say, I just want, like Dr. Madero was saying, I feel like I can talk to you because you're someone that looks like me, that is also a Latina. So I would say go to your professors. We are happy to help you. And I was about to say another piece of advice. That's one consejo. I forgot my other consejo while I was talking about this one. But yeah, I would say ask for help, and don't be afraid to go to your professors. That's what we're here for.
And the offices that we have on campus are very good about answering the phone. I've learned that because one time I had problems with my FAFSA form, and it said at the bottom of the email, call this number. And so I was like, what do? I called the number right away. Somebody picked up, and they were able to help me out very quickly. So that was a good experience for me. Dr. Robledo?
Yeah, so I really like the definition that you gave for consejo. I felt like it really captured sort of what I was thinking about here. So in our family, and I'm going to tell you a story and then I'm going to give you the consejo. So in our family, we have a tradition that has really built resilience, and persistence for me. So my youngest aunt was the first in our family to graduate from college. And when she left and graduated, she wasn't the first to go to college, but she was the first to finish college. And so when she graduated, our family got together and bought like a plastic crown, like those king crowns, almost like Burger King, but it was plastic, so it was durable. And they gave that crown to her when she graduated from college. And so every year, every time somebody in our family graduated, it was this passing of that crown, to sort of recognize you have now, sort of accomplished these goals that we have for our family. And so I have this picture when I graduated from Texas A&M of my two cousins who graduated before me and my aunt giving me the crown. And that has been something that I think about a lot when I was working on finishing my PhD, and I took the longest possible because I waited until the very end of the deadline. But when I was going through that process, it was thinking about that tradition in our family that really sort of pushed me over the line. And so my consejo for folks is to create, as your first generation students, create those traditions in your families. It's kind of like what Dr. Topliff always says, we're in the business of changing family trees, and you as a first generation student are the first in a long line of college graduates that's going to come. And so creating those traditions can only make that experience that much richer for you and your family.
Definitely. It's kind of like passing on the torch to the next person. I really love that. Dr. Madero?
I have two. I think that I feel like these were consejos that were given to me along the way, and I think I'd like to pass on. Number one, ¿y por qué no? Like when you start to doubt yourself, why not you? What makes the other person, fulanito, manganito, better than you? Nothing. You just have to be, and I've always said, I am a girl from the border who didn't even know English until I was like in second grade. There is nothing special about me. I'm just willing to work really hard. So if you're willing to do that, ¿por qué no? You can do it too. And a second one would be to be a problem solver. Things are going to come your way, issues, problems are going to come that life is going to throw at you. Okay, but be a problem solver. Find the solutions that you need to move forward and to get you to the finish line.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes along with what Erin mentioned earlier, how in our culture we just kind of know how to thrive and get through situations that could seem difficult.